Hey everyone, and welcome. You know that feeling, right? You get on a plane, you settle in, you pull out your laptop, and you play the in-flight Wi-Fi lottery. Sometimes you hit the jackpot. You're streaming movies, no problem. Other times, you can't even get an email to send. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the incredible tech that makes it all happen and figure out why that connection can be so all over the place. It really all boils down to this one simple question, doesn't it? You fly from New York to LA one week, and the connection is amazing. The next week, you're on a pretty similar plane, and it's basically unusable. So what's the deal? Well, it's not just bad luck. It has everything to do with the specific type of technology your plane is using to talk to the internet from 7 miles up in the air.
And when you get right down to it, there are really only two ways a plane can get online. It's either talking to the ground, or it's talking to space. And believe me, which one of those it's doing is the single biggest reason for the kind of experience you're going to have.
So on one hand, you've got air-to-ground, or ATG. This is the go-to, cost-effective choice for flights that are going to spend their entire trip over land. But on the other hand, you've got satellite. And if you're crossing an ocean or flying over some really remote places, well, it's the only game in town.
So how does this ATG thing actually work? Well, it's surprisingly a lot like your cell phone. There's an antenna on the belly of the plane that's constantly looking for a signal from a network of special cell towers on the ground. And as that plane is just rocketing through the sky at almost 600 miles an hour, it's seamlessly handing off that signal from one tower to the next, just to keep you connected. It's pretty amazing.
But, and this is the crucial catch with ATG, the second that plane flies out over the ocean, well, there are no more towers. The signal's gone. That's exactly why a flight from, say, Chicago to Dallas can have awesome Wi-Fi, but a flight from New York to London needs a totally different playbook.
And that playbook, of course, is satellite. But here's the thing. Satellite internet isn't just one single thing. Nope. It's this complex world of different frequencies, different orbits, and every single choice comes with its own major trade-offs between speed, how reliable it is, and where in the world it'll even work.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. You can see here there are three main options: L-band, Ku-band, and K-band. The best way to think about these is like different lanes on a highway. You know, each one has a totally different speed limit and can handle a different amount of traffic. So to really get what's going on, let's look at the two extremes first, the slow and steady, and then the super fast.
So on one end of the spectrum, you've got L-band. This is the old reliable, the tortoise in the race. It is bulletproof, it's super reliable, and it works absolutely everywhere on the globe. So what's the catch? It's slow, really slow. This makes it perfect for critical stuff for the cockpit. You know, safety data that has to get through no matter what, but you are definitely not going to be streaming Netflix with it.
Now let's jump all the way to the other side, Ka-band. This is the high-capacity racehorse. It's operating at a much higher frequency, and it can deliver crazy fast speeds. We're talking over 100 megabits per second, more than enough for everybody to be streaming in HD. But it has an Achilles heel, something called rain fade. That high-frequency signal is so fine that things like heavy rain or even just really dense clouds can mess with it and cause your connection to drop. Not ideal.
So, okay, if L-band is too slow for us passengers and K-band can be a little flaky in bad weather, what's the answer? Well, that brings us to the middle ground, Ku-band, the real workhorse of the industry. And this slide shows you exactly why. Just look at the image on the left. That is the super dense network of Ku-band satellites. Now compare that to the much sparser K-band network on the right. That density, that's the whole ballgame.
And that brings us to the most important word in all of this, redundancy. With hundreds of satellites covering the planet, Ku-band just has an incredible number of backup options. If one satellite is maybe in the wrong spot, or it's getting totally slammed with traffic over a busy airport like LAX, the plane's antenna just finds another one. For an industry where consistency is absolutely everything, that redundancy is a massive, massive advantage.
But just when we thought we had this whole world of trade-offs figured out, a totally new technology has shown up and it is changing all the rules. We are talking about the LEO revolution.
Now, to get why this is such a huge deal, we have to talk about distance. Those traditional satellites we've been talking about, they're in what's called geostationary orbit, or GEO, and they are an incredible 22,000 miles away from Earth. Just let that sink in. Now, this new generation of satellites, they're in low Earth orbit, or LEO, and they are so much closer. We're talking somewhere around 300 to maybe 1,000 miles up. I mean, it's not even in the same ballpark as that 22,000-mile journey.
And that proximity, well, it changes everything. So what exactly is LEO? Well, instead of just a few huge, really distant satellites, LEO systems use what are called constellations, literally thousands of smaller satellites that create this dense web of connectivity all around the globe. And the big players here are names you've probably heard of, like SpaceX's Starlink and OneWeb. And being this close to Earth is the absolute game changer. Because it drastically cuts down the distance that a signal has to travel, LEO systems just slash the delay. That's what engineers call latency. You know, it's the difference between talking to someone in the next room versus trying to have a conversation with someone on the moon. That delay, it's almost gone.
And this chart really just puts that huge leap in performance right in front of your eyes. On the left, you see that high latency, that really long signal delay from the traditional GEO satellites. But on the right, that's LEO. The latency is so low, it feels like a fiber connection you'd have at home, and the potential speeds can just rocket up to 350 megabits per second. This is the kind of performance that was just a fantasy in the air a few years ago.
So what does all this crazy advanced technology actually mean for you, the person sitting in seat 14A? Well, it means the entire experience inside the cabin is about to change in a really big way.
For the very first time, you can actually, reliably, do all the things you take for granted on the ground. We are talking about lag-free, real-time video calls. We're talking about accessing all your work files from the cloud, even online gaming. Multiple people can be streaming high-quality video all at the same time, and the system won't even break a sweat.
But this whole revolution, it's not just about watching better movies on the plane. It's actually changing how airlines think. This technology is making something possible that the industry calls the long, thin route.
So here's how it works. First, you've got these new, super fuel-efficient, smaller jets that can now fly way farther than they used to. Second, LEO provides that nonstop, high-speed Wi-Fi over the oceans that business travelers absolutely have to have. And third, you put those two together, and airlines can now make money flying these smaller jets directly between smaller cities, like, say, Boston to Rome, completely skipping the giant hubs and opening up a whole new world of travel options.
Now, before we get too carried away planning our next gaming session from the sky, it's important to have a quick reality check. I mean, let's be honest, providing internet to a metal tube that's moving at nearly the speed of sound is still a mind-bogglingly difficult engineering problem.
Engineers have to deal with some seriously complex physics, like something called the Doppler shift. You know how an ambulance siren seems to change its pitch as it races past you? The same thing happens to the radio frequency from the satellite because the plane is moving so fast. The computers on board have to constantly adjust for this, just to keep a stable connection. It's incredible that it works at all. And all this leaves us with a really fascinating question for the future. As the internet at 35,000 feet becomes just as fast and reliable as what we have in our homes, what happens to the plane itself? Does the cabin just become another office in the sky? Or is this seamless connection going to unlock totally new ways to work, to play, and to travel that we haven't even thought of yet? The sky, it seems, is quite literally no longer the limit.